My name is Clara Hayes. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a financial analyst for a mid-sized investment firm. The ceramic bird on the mantelpiece, a small, hand-painted robin, seemed to tilt its head at me, just as it had for 30 years in this very room. It was the only thing that felt familiar as I stood there, a printed spreadsheet clutched in my hand, staring at my older sister, Bethany. Her eyes, usually so quick to sparkle with an idea or a joke, were wide and unblinking. Her mouth was slightly ajar. I had just asked her, as calmly as I could manage, "Bethany, I need to know where my $200,000 went. I have the statements here." And she had frozen. Her entire body had gone rigid, like a deer caught in headlights, but with a deeper, more profound stillness that spoke of guilt, not just surprise. The silence in the living room of our childhood home stretched, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by the distant hum of the refrigerator. I knew, in that moment, that everything I suspected was true. And I knew, too, that the cost of that truth would be far greater than just the money. To understand why I was standing there, demanding answers from my own sister, you need to know about our mother, Eleanor. Mom passed away 18 months ago, a quiet exit after a long illness. She was a woman who believed in fairness, in leaving things tidy. Her will was clear: the house, where Bethany had lived on and off for the better part of a decade, would go to Bethany. The remaining liquid assets, around $400,000 after taxes and legal fees, were to be divided equally between us. That meant $200,000 for me, and $200,000 for Bethany. Mom had named Bethany, 2 years my senior, as the executor of her estate. I hadn't questioned it. Bethany, a freelance artist, had always been the more spontaneous, less grounded of us, but I thought the responsibility might do her good. Besides, she was already living in the house, familiar with Mom's paperwork. I trusted her. I truly did. I was focused on my career, saving for a down payment on a small condo in the city. That $200,000 from Mom's estate was going to be the final push I needed. It represented not just money, but a piece of Mom's legacy, a secure future she had helped build for me. 6 months after Mom's death, I started making polite inquiries. "How's the estate coming along, Beth?" I'd ask, usually over the phone. Bethany's responses were always a little vague. "Oh, paperwork is slow. Lawyers take forever. Estate accounts are complicated." I'd nod, understanding. I knew estates could be drawn out. I was busy, and Bethany had always been a bit flighty, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She was grieving, too, after all. Another 6 months passed. A full year since Mom's death. My condo search was getting serious. I found a perfect little place, needing a bit of work but with great bones, and I knew it wouldn't stay on the market long. I called Bethany, more insistent this time. "Beth, I really need to get my share of the inheritance. I'm looking at putting an offer on a condo." She promised to sort it out. A few weeks later, a check arrived in my mail for $20,000. The accompanying note, scrawled on a post-it, read, "This is what's cleared so far. More soon." It was a fraction of what I was expecting, but I deposited it. When I pressed her about the rest, Bethany finally, reluctantly, emailed me a single page from an estate bank statement. It showed the $20,000 transfer, along with a few other withdrawals labeled estate expenses. Things like gardening service in January, or minor repairs that seemed to pop up monthly. As a financial analyst, my brain immediately flagged them. They weren't huge, maybe a few hundred here, 1,000 there, but they felt off. Why would a gardening service be needed in winter? Why so many minor repairs without receipts? I made a mental note to ask for the full statements, but Bethany was already on to a new topic, talking about a new art project. I decided not to push too hard, not yet. The condo I loved received another offer. I was devastated. I called Bethany, tears in my eyes. "I lost it, Beth. I needed that money." She was sympathetic, but still vague. "Oh, Clara, I'm so sorry. Things are just so slow. I'm doing my best. It was then that a cold knot started to form in my stomach. The slow excuse was wearing thin. My intuition, honed by years of looking at numbers, told me something was deeply wrong. I decided to take matters into my own hands. As a beneficiary, I had a legal right to full transparency regarding the estate. I contacted the bank directly, explaining the situation and providing Mom's death certificate and a copy of the will. It took a few weeks, some persistent phone calls, and a bit of paperwork, but eventually, a thick envelope arrived at my door. Inside were the complete bank statements for Mom's estate account, covering the entire period since her death. I spread them out on my dining table. A meticulous spreadsheet already open on my laptop. I started cross-referencing every transaction. The gardening service in January? A withdrawal for $800, followed by a matching deposit into Bethany's personal account the next day. The minor repairs? Similar patterns. But those were small fish. What truly made my blood run cold were the larger transactions. A series of transfers, ranging from $10,000 to $50,000, all directly into Bethany's personal checking account, starting just a few months after Mom's death and continuing steadily over the past year. They were often labeled vaguely as executor fee or estate management, but no such fees were outlined in Mom's will, nor were they justified by any actual work. The total of these transfers, combined with the smaller, questionable withdrawals, amounted to just over $190,000. My $200,000, minus the $20,000 she had sent me, was almost entirely gone. What I didn't understand yet was where it had gone once it hit Bethany's account. That detail mattered later. Just as I was processing this devastating discovery, a notification popped up on my phone. It was Bethany, posting a photo on Instagram. She was beaming, standing next to a brand new, bright red convertible, her arm around a man I vaguely recognized as Mark, her latest boyfriend. The caption read, "New wheels for new adventures." Thanks, babe. My eyes darted back to my spreadsheet. One of the largest transfers, $50,000, had occurred just 3 weeks prior. The timing was too perfect. This wasn't just mismanagement or slow paperwork. This was deliberate. My sister had systematically taken my inheritance, not for Mom's house, not for estate needs, but for her own lavish lifestyle and, it seemed, to impress her new boyfriend. The free spirit I'd always indulged was, in fact, a thief. The recognition hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just the money, it was the betrayal, the calculated deceit. All those vague answers, the partial statement, the post-it notes, they were all part of a carefully constructed lie. My sister, the person I had shared a childhood with, who had sat with me through Mom's final days, had stolen from me. The image of her beaming face next to that convertible burned into my mind. I spent the next 2 weeks in a quiet fury, channeling my anger into meticulous preparation. Every line item on those bank statements was scrutinized. I highlighted the suspicious transfers, cross-referenced dates with Bethany's social media posts, and even looked up the market value of the red convertible. I drafted a timeline, a clear, undeniable narrative of the money's disappearance. I also called my friend Sarah, a probate attorney, for advice. I didn't want to sue my sister, not yet, but I needed to understand my legal standing. Sarah confirmed that as a beneficiary, I had every right to demand a full accounting, and that Bethany, as executor, had breached her fiduciary duty. My evidence was strong. I didn't tell Bethany I was coming. I simply drove to our childhood home, the place that was now hers, the place where so many memories, both good and bad, resided. I walked through the front door, the old wood groaning under my feet, and found her in the living room, sketching on a pad. She looked up, surprised, a smile forming. "Clara. What a surprise. Come in, have some tea." The ease of her deception infuriated me, but I kept my voice level. "No tea, Bethany. I need to talk to you about something important." I sat on the edge of the armchair, the one Mom always sat in, and pulled out my carefully organized binder. Bethany's smile faltered. She saw the papers, the focused intensity in my gaze. I laid the spreadsheet on the coffee table between us, pointing to the highlighted columns. Bethany, I need to know where my $200,000 went. I have the statements here. That's when she froze, the small ceramic robin on the mantelpiece a silent witness to the shattering of our bond. The silence after my question was deafening. Bethany's breath hitched, and her face, usually so expressive, was a blank mask. Then, a flicker of fear, quickly replaced by a desperate, defensive anger. How dare you, Clara? What is this? Are you accusing me of something? Her voice was tight, a little higher than usual. I pushed the spreadsheet closer to her. These are Mom's estate statements, Bethany. And these columns show transfers totaling $190,000 from the estate account directly into your personal account. They're labeled things like executor fee and estate management, but Mom's will didn't stipulate any such fees, and you never provided any accounting for them. Where did it go, Bethany? She finally broke her frozen stance, snatching up the papers, her eyes darting over the figures. This is ridiculous. It was for the house. You know how old this place is. There were so many repairs. Mom would have wanted me to be comfortable here. Show me the receipts, Bethany, I said, my voice unwavering. Show me invoices for $190,000 worth of repairs. Because I don't see anything here that accounts for a new convertible, or those trips you've been posting about with Mark. I watched her face crumple, the color draining from it. She stammered, the market. I invested some of it. It was a bad investment, okay? Mark had this great idea, and I thought. You invested Mom's money, my inheritance, without my knowledge or consent, in Mark's great idea? I cut her off, my voice rising slightly. Bethany, you were the executor. You had a fiduciary duty to manage the estate responsibly and distribute it according to the will. This isn't a bad investment. This is theft. She burst into tears, a sudden, theatrical wail. You're being so cruel. I'm your sister. Mom would want me to be happy. She always wanted me to have a stable home, and it costs money, Clara. You have a great job, you don't need it as much as I do. The entitlement in her voice was sickening. I stood up, pushing back the armchair. That's not how it works, Bethany. Mom's will was clear. And what you did was illegal. I gave you every chance. I waited, I asked politely. But you kept lying, kept taking. I paused, taking a deep breath. I'm not going to let this go. You have two options. You can agree to a repayment plan, with interest, that will draw up with an attorney. Or I will pursue legal action to recover my share, and the court will likely force you to sell this house to pay me back. Her crying stopped abruptly. Her eyes, red-rimmed, stared at me with a mixture of disbelief and pure hatred. You wouldn't make me lose Mom's house. I don't want to, Bethany, I said, my voice quiet but firm. But you left me no choice. This wasn't a mistake. This was a deliberate act of betrayal. You stole from me, from Mom's legacy. You have a week to think about it and agree to meet with my attorney to discuss a repayment plan. If I don't hear from you, I'll proceed with legal action. I walked out, leaving her sobbing in the living room. The silence in the house, broken only by her cries, felt heavy with the weight of shattered trust. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and texts from other relatives, all varying degrees of shocked, sympathetic, or trying to mediate. Bethany had, predictably, started spinning a story about me being greedy and heartless. But I calmly explained the facts, sharing copies of the bank statements with key family members. The evidence was undeniable. My aunt, Mom's sister, called me, heartbroken. I always worried about Bethany, she admitted, but I never thought she'd do something like this. True to my word, when a week passed without a word from Bethany, I instructed Sarah, my attorney friend, to draft a formal demand letter. That got her attention. A few days later, Bethany called, her voice tight and devoid of emotion. She agreed to meet with Sarah and me. The meeting was tense, filled with more accusations and denials from Bethany, but Sarah calmly laid out the legal ramifications. Bethany had no choice. She had no assets to repay me quickly, and the only significant asset she owned was the house. The outcome was painful but necessary. Bethany agreed to sell the house. It was the only way she could hope to repay me without facing a full-blown lawsuit that would ruin her financially and legally. The process took months. Every step of the way, Bethany dragged her feet, but the legal pressure was relentless. I felt a profound sadness watching the for sale sign go up in the yard of the home where I'd grown up. It was a place full of Mom's spirit, and now it was being sold because of Bethany's choices. Eventually, the house sold. My $200,000, minus legal fees and a small amount Bethany had managed to scrape together, was returned to me. It wasn't the full amount, and it came far too late for the condo I had wanted, but it was closure. Bethany moved out of state, cutting off contact with most of our family. Our relationship, once defined by sisterhood, was now a hollow echo, a casualty of her greed. I ended up buying a smaller, more modest condo, a place that felt like a fresh start, untainted by the ghosts of what might have been. A few weeks after I moved in, a small package arrived. Inside, carefully wrapped, was the ceramic robin from Mom's mantelpiece. There was no note. I placed it on my own mantelpiece, a quiet, colorful presence in my new home. It no longer symbolized shared memory or unwavering trust. Now, it was a reminder of the fragile line between love and betrayal and the quiet, enduring strength it takes to reclaim what is rightfully yours.